What? These drug death articles are plentiful, ladies and gentlemen. They really are. Number of fentanyl deaths in Massachusetts alarms state DEA. Mexican cartels are delivering vast quantities of inexpensive and powerful synthetic fentanyl to New England, causing the highest rate of fentanyl-related deaths in the nation while creating a plague that the area's top drug enforcement officials describes is like no other epidemic he's ever seen. It's a pipeline that has often begins in China, wins through the cartels of Mexico, and flows into distribution cities such as Lawrence and Springfield. According to Michael J. Ferguson, the special agent in charge of the New England Field Division of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Wow. It's packaged and shipped off to remote hamlets and other urban centers. In a candid and often a 90-minute alarming interview, Ferguson offered a detailed look at how fentanyl arrives in the region and an unsparing perspective on the way the drug destroys families and threatens entire communities. Fentanyl is manufactured death, Ferguson said. Wherever can be likened to a weapon of mass destruction and the effect it has on people, it's fentanyl. And you know what? China knows that. Really. And I'm not going to rule out that they're doing this mess on purpose. How do you topple a world domination? You drug them up. And then you become the world domination on the planet. Okay, the typical procure fentanyl or its chemical components from China, process it in Mexico into powder and pills, and then ship the synthetic product to local distributors. The result is menacing, anesthetizing foreign organized drug trade that is fueling a deadly crisis of addiction and stretching law enforcement to its limits. The introduction of fentanyl has changed the way we do business, Ferguson said during an interview at the agency Boston headquarters. It's like no other epidemic that I've come across in my 27 years at DEA. The opioid plague has ravaged nearly every part of the country, but New England has been especially hard hit. And I'm not surprised. There's, one thing about New England, it has a high Caucasoid population there. New Hampshire and Massachusetts rank first and second in per capita deaths caused by fentanyl, which has surpassed heroin as the leading cause of fatal opioid overdoses in those states. A seemingly endless black market supply that brings fentanyl to the smallest, most remote towns, sometimes at a street level, cost only a few dollars, has deepened the crisis. Even though the drug rarely originates in the United States, Ferguson said, often the opioid is mixed with heroin. We never had this proliferation of cartels in our backyard, Ferguson said. They travel back and forth, sending reps and associates to look out for their interests. Illicitly produced fentanyl also is obtained over the dark web. Oh, wow. All right. A shadowy internet market where the drug can be brought cheaply from China and other sources. Sometimes the opioids arrive undetected through the U.S. Postal Service, but about 80% of the fentanyl that reaches New England comes from Mexico, usually smuggled in vehicles across the vast southwest border, Ferguson said. That's how a lot of the drugs get in any given state in the U.S., actually, not just New England. From there, fentanyl, hidden in secret compartments, sometimes in 18-wheelers carrying fruit and vegetables, are often driven straight to a city such as Lawrence, where the confluence of interstates 495, 93, and 95 means fentanyl can be handed off quickly during a short detour from the highway. Although cartels provide the infrastructure to dominate the market, the distribution of fentanyl in Lawrence and other New England cities generally falls to local drug traffickers and middlemen who, what they do is they mix in the fentanyl additives into the drug after it's handed off. So they're not going to stop this. Like I said, it's too many people involved in keeping drugs flowing into America. And since America has been here, there's been drugs here. Even the founding forefathers were using drugs, ladies and gentlemen. So it's always been in this country. I don't care how many agents they get out here. One thing about these drug cartels, they are very crafty in how they get these drugs into the country. They don't have to come across that border at all. And that's what America is missing. A lot of these drugs are now being mailed into the country through China, and it can't be detected by dogs. So now you got a flow of drugs that cannot be detected by your drug sniffing dogs. And in many cases, if they sniff these drugs, they die. What are you going to do? Seriously. Seriously, what are you going to do? So he's generally admitting that they really can't control these drugs coming in and flowing into the country from China and Mexico. And also another one that some of you might not have heard is the Dominican Republic is also involved in a lot of the profiteering of drugs going on in the US. And not to mention Canada. There's a lot flowing in from the Canadian border as well. I know Trump will always talk about Mexico, but there's a lot of drugs flowing down from Canada as well. So now you got drugs coming in from all borders of this country. You're not going to stop this, ladies and gentlemen. It is just an illusion for them to believe they are going to stop this epidemic, because they won't. It is just too many people involved in ensuring that drugs make it to the US. And when it's like that, you're not going to stop this thing from happening. It's inevitable. The US is doomed. Now they got doctors writing less script, but you didn't stop the street drug, which means the epidemic is not going to end at all. Whatever they can't get from their doctors, they will get from the streets. It's a fact. Please leave your comments and subscribe. And if you can donate to my channel, ladies and gentlemen, please do. Peace, family.